Greetings everyone, this is Duragon Lamente. Most of you on here who know of me know I'm a fairly predominant atheist. I like the naturalistic viewpoints. But my good friend Zareth here, the person I'm going to be having dialogue in this video and many videos to come, has some very interesting and, how shall I say, not mainstream viewpoints. Many of which do hold quite a bit of validity, and I encourage you all to look into what he has to say. I will have links in the sidebar and floating around the video for you to enjoy. I hope you enjoy the video, and thank you for watching.
Hi, well, greetings. The crux of all the information that I have and why I have it and why I need to share it is in relevance to 2012.
Okay.
Or the Great Alignment, as it's called.
Okay.
The end of an age is what it is. And planet Earth has gone through this before. And right now, as we proceed through the procession of the equinoxes, we are ending what is called, or known to be, a patriarchal age. And we will head into what the Greeks called the Golden Age, or what a man named Yeshua called the 1,000 Years of Peace. So this is a cyclical type of movement that our solar system and galaxy goes through as we pass through all 12 houses of the zodiac. And it has to do with the development of consciousness. We are leaving the patriarchal age, heading into the golden age, which will lead into the matriarchal age. And that's why right now it is so prevalent that so many people are starting to bring up the goddess and the divine feminine, because it's as if she's on her way, and we have to prepare for it.
But the way you describe it is, we're going to be coming into the golden age. Humans inherently are not peaceful people, so how can we be entering an era of peace if humans are still alive, basically?
Consciousness is, let's just say, sort of a spiritual democracy.
Mm-hmm.
When it's been referred to in science, this anomaly, as the 100th monkey syndrome.
Wow.
When the story goes, sometime, and when I tell these stories, you got to remember, I have done so much study over the years, I've forgotten more than most people will have to learn in order to understand this.
Hence the reason we have it recorded now.
But there was this group of scientists who were working on these islands off of Japan, where they were studying these little monkeys. And one of the reasons they were studying them was because they are so much like the human social structure. In other words, the youngest female was the lowest rung on the ladder. The boy was held in high regard. The mother served the father in the family, but the father was the patriarch leader of whoever could find themselves in that position had to dominate all the other monkeys.
It's the 1950s all over
It
again.
just so happened that the dominant male monkey on one island caught on to something which there in turn had a relevant effect on all the other islands in this regard. What the scientists did was to get up and study the social structure of the monkeys. They got sacks of sweet potatoes, rowed their boats in, got up on shore, the monkeys all sat at the edge, and they would throw the potatoes out on the beach and sit over to the side and watch them as they did their little social order, pecking order type of stuff. And they basically saw the human element inside these families in the same structure, almost hierarchy, as we'll find ourselves in a similar situation. But like our society and our cultures, we learn from our children whether we know it or not. They're teaching us all the new things. They're teaching us patience. They're teaching us new styles, or what's relevant in the consciousness of the next generation.
Or even in the current generation.
What it is after everybody got their sweet potatoes and went off to the side, they brushed off the sand and they sat there and ate them and watched each other and did their little psychic communication with one another. Everybody's in order. Watch those guys in the white coats. And the smallest monkey was a little girl. And she would always have to try and scramble and get some maybe out of the water and take those. Well, one day, she grabbed what she could, and she stood there in the water. Just picture a little female monkey, little skinny legs, holding up her little sweet potatoes, and she dropped one in the water, and she picked it up, and it had no sand on it. So she took a bite, and it was salty. So it tasted good. So she dipped it in the water and did it again. Well, it took a little while, but she taught her brother this trick. You don't have to brush the sand off. And if you put it in the water, it'll taste better. And it took them a while, but all the kids learned first. Then the mothers caught on to this. The males were the holdouts.
Of course.
But one day, when the lead male, caught wind of this, he did it himself. And at that moment, things changed in the monkey population.
And thus, the monkey evolved.
What happened was when
least
all
that's
these scientists got back together from these little islands to have their little conference, the one scientist told this story about how everyone now was allowed to do this. Just basically dump your potatoes in the water. They taste good. Sit there and eat them at the water's edge if you want. And it was acceptable social behavior. The scientists, as they're telling the story, another one says, "When did this happen?" And he told him what date it was. He goes, "That's amazing. What time?" And he told him what time. And he said, "Oh my God, that explains why on our island, all of a sudden, all the monkeys went to the water's edge, dropped their potatoes in the water, and started eating them." And then the other scientists compared their notes, and all these monkeys of this species started doing it at that moment.
But they're on
Why
different
is that
islands. How did this
important?
happen?
Why is that important?
Okay.
Because they are of a certain vibration and a communication. And they're
Oh.
a species. And when a species moves forward, it does it all in one big step. That's us. How do I know this? Well, 2012's coming.
Yeah, back to that story.
Okay. When we apply that 100th monkey syndrome, think about the things that we're just discovering recently. In a book in 2009, put out by Greg Braden, called Fractal Time, he talks about a discovery that they made. And the discovery that they made was important because of what day it was and what time it was. And what it was there was two satellites that monitor electromagnetic frequencies on planet Earth. They're called GOES, Geostationary Operational Ecological Satellites, as I remember correctly. These two satellites, number 8 and number 10, caught a huge spike in electromagnetics on planet Earth.
Oh, I remember this.
That's right. On September 11th, 15 minutes after the first hour was hit. Excuse me. And they caught a second spike 15 minutes after the second hitting into the tower.
Yeah.
And what they realized was due to the knowledge of the people at the HeartMath Institute, they realized that there's an electromagnetic frequency. They've been studying it so long. It comes from the heart. It's about 5,000 times more powerful than the brain and its electromagnetic output. And remember, you're only using 1/10 of that. But the heart has its own wisdom. And it basically is the ringleader of the body. And the body has its own wisdom, and it's much higher than yours. But what's even higher than that is our tie-in consciousness about this experience and how this day was supposed to be an event that we were all kind of waiting for. I knew because as I awoke that morning, I was woken by somebody who said, "You have to see this." And I looked at the television, and without being told anything, I said, "Oh my God, they did it." And she said, "They did what?" Well, we'll get to who they is.
Okay.
She said, "They did what?" I said, "No matter what you hear today, it is not going to be the truth. But this is an event that is going to alter our future. It's going to shift our consciousness as a whole." Now remember, this was a worldwide event. It happened in one spot. But the symbolic nature of it, I had already studied years earlier. The 11s. The location, I wasn't quite sure, but I had a little guidance that day. Just say a little birdie told me to count the 11s. So before the buildings had even hit the ground, which, by the way, both came down in about 11 seconds, there was
Free
a
fall.
whole list. So they say.
Yeah.
There was a whole list of 11s that I had already come to the conclusion of. The first one was 9 + 1 + 1 = 11. That's interesting. And it was my guide. It was my guide, a voice, literally, I heard, said, "Count the 11s." So when it started, then it was the 254th day on the calendar year. 2 + 5 + 4 is 11. Then there was this flight 11. And then there is these two buildings that are 110 stories, and zeros don't count in numerology, so 1111. And then I thought, what do they look like from a distance?
An 11.
And a big 11. Why is this important? Well, I'll just drop this seed. Someone recently said if you look at the nature of those that run the world, it looks like it's just one big, massive, mega ritual. There's symbology, distortion of sacred geometry. There are the dates. September 11th is a date that will live in infamy. Forget about December 7th for a moment.
Seriously.
And that quote. This September 11th has occurred many times throughout history. And in fact, the first terrorist attack, so they say, on American soil, a religious terrorist attack, was in 1857 on September 11th.